So welcome back for our next mini lecture. And here we're going to focus on a final model that I want to focus on this week called the trans-theoretical model or the stages of change model. And here it is. This model was developed by two psychology researchers, Prochaska and DiClemente, in the late 70s. At this time, there were numerous psychological theories, and this was becoming a barrier to using any theory to inform health promotion. So the researchers wanted to find a way to integrate them towards behavior change, make it easier. Across several psychological theories, the researchers identified 10 general processes of change, such as the idea of providing rewards or from Skinner's contingency model. To test these processes, they conducted studies with people who did or did not successfully quit smoking. And they were looking to see, for the people who had actually successfully quit, how frequently and at what time during their struggle to quit had they used these processes or strategies to quit smoking. They found that the process of quitting smoking was incremental, and that people used different strategies or processes at different points in this process. From this research came what is now called the stages of change model, and it's very popular in our fields. The trans-theoretical or stages of change model has many assumptions. One is that behavior change is cyclical, nonlinear, and so relapse is built in and expected. For example, people who try to stop smoking may have to attempt to quit several times before they are successful. In fact, research has shown that people who have attempted to quit in the past will be more successful than people who are trying to quit for the first time. So people shouldn't give up. It's expected that there will be relapse. Another assumption is that behavior change is a process, not a one-time event, so it occurs in incremental stages. Therefore, we can't expect that just one day people will quit smoking or start a new behavior and be fully successful immediately. Incremental changes, like smoking fewer cigarettes, might be the way towards success. Another assumption is that no single theory can account for behavior change. The model is called the trans-theoretical model because it allows us to draw from multiple theories, like the health belief model, the theory of planned behavior, operant conditioning, and other theories. Still, another assumption is that individuals vary in their readiness or stage of change. This is really important and the major cornerstone of this theory. The idea is to identify where people are in their readiness to change and then work with them from where they are. This is a classical social work philosophy, starting where the people are. Another assumption is that a majority of at-risk individuals are not ready to take action. Studies have shown that most people are at a very early stage of change. They might not even have considered changing their behavior because they don't know that their behaviors are unhealthy or they don't feel that the change is necessary for them. Like in the health belief model, they might not know or care that they are susceptible to problems if they don't stop smoking or stop having unprotected sex. Ultimately, the goal in health psychology is to help people move through a set of stages to achieve success in changing their behavior. A final assumption is that successful change entails using change processes. To help people, we can draw from the change processes identified by DiClemente and Prochaska that successful people have used to make change. By understanding their level of readiness or their stage of readiness to change, we can help identify and develop strategies or interventions to help them. For example, a person at the very beginning stage of readiness might need information about why change is necessary before he or she will commit to change. Whereas somebody at a higher level of change who has really thought about change and wants to make a change might need some help and strategies in doing so. They might already have the information and therefore we don't need to give that to them. As health psychologists, we can develop interventions that meet the people's needs. One size does not necessarily fit all. So here are some constructs of the stage of change, and there are about 5 or 6 stages, okay? So the first one is pre-contemplation, and I call this never, the hard to reach. It's the very beginning of the change process. The person has no intention to take action within at least a 6-month time period. 6 months is usually the time period you'll see when people are assessing stages of change or stages of readiness. This is the person who never uses condoms and does not have any intention of using them. They avoid thinking about their behavior or changing it, at least not within the next 6 months. Contemplation, or I call it someday, is the intention to take action within this next 6 months. This is the person who has thought about using condoms and thinks it's a good idea, but it's not something they seriously plan or take actions to achieve. They see the pros and the cons of making this change. Preparation, or I call it soon, is the intention to take action within a month. This is the person who has taken some steps to prepare for action. They may have read information, looked into buying condoms, and even set a date for starting to use them, but they're not actively using them. Action, or now, is the person who has changed their behavior, but for less than 6 months. It's still a little rocky. This is the person who has actively engaged in using condoms. They're using them with certain partners and maybe some of the time. Maintenance, or forever, the person has changed for more than 6 months. For this person, using condoms is routine, but there is a chance of relapse always. They are still struggling with using them. Possibly they are tempted to not bring it up with a certain partner or avoiding sex at all. Still, they are trying to maintain their condom use. And if they relapse, they will not necessarily start at pre-contemplation. They might have plans to get back on the wagon. Termination is not always available in this model, and not everybody uses it. It's sort of this idea that it's all done, and it's the I mean it phase. This is not often discussed. At this point, no relapse is a risk. There is no risk for relapse. At this point, the person insists on using condoms. It's hard to say if this is really achievable or if people are always at some risk for relapse. But how do you know what stage somebody's at? You can just ask them. And there are many surveys out there for asking people about their stage of change for making a behavior change. And it depends on what the person says. And then you can start preparing for how you would work with them in an intervention. So a survey question might ask, to check the box that most is what they think. I do not use condoms. I do not plan on starting. I currently do not use condoms when I have sex, but I plan to start. I occasionally use condoms when I have sex. I began using condoms within the last 6 months, and I use them every time I have sex. I have used condoms for more than 6 months. So depending on what they check will be how we plan our interventions to help somebody make a successful change. So in our next mini lecture, we'll go through these 10 change processes and also talk about where they would be most useful.